So if you've watched any of my other videos, you've seen how we go through acrylic blank preparation, the painting, we've gone through the drilling aspects of acrylic, we've gone through the turning aspects of it, we've gone through sanding. The last thing that I want to show you on acrylics is how to get a glass-like finish on an acrylic. And it's not as complicated as you might think. So here's the blank that we're going to do today. It's one of the circuit board blanks. And I picked this blank out specifically because you're going to see that when we get it done with our traditional sanding, you're going to see it's very white, and that's expected. And then we're going to take you through the steps of how to go from that traditionally sanded blank to this glass-like finish in literally minutes. It's not going to take us more than 5 minutes to get a glass finish on here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through micro mesh, we're going to go through some traditional sanding techniques, we're going to go through how to apply a scratch remover, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about a buffer and how to do buffing and buffer maintenance. It's very important when you're going to do the buffer that you keep your buffing wheels clean. I'll give you a couple real quick tips on how to clean up your buffing wheels and get it all prepared so that you can get a very nice glass-like finish on your acrylic. So with that, let's get right to the video. Okay, so now we're ready to actually put the finish on this and the finishing touches on this circuit board blank. And I've already sanded it down with traditional sandpaper up to 320. So if you've watched my other video, I tell you to progress through the grits. You can start at whatever grit you want. So if you're starting at 100, you're fine, but just make sure you go through every single grit. So in this case, I was able to start at 220, I did 320, and now I'm ready to start with the 400. And what we're going to go from is this blank that looks like this to this, the finished blank, and it's going to be done in a matter of minutes. This is not going to take no longer than 4 or 5 minutes to go from this blank to this. So we're ready to go with what I'll go with is wet dry next. And so you see here, this is a piece of 400 grit wet dry, and I'm going to use it wet. I will never use it in the dry mode. So I'll simply, got a piece of water, I got some water over there, I'm going to wet this down, and I'm going to start out. I'm never going to go too fast with this. So I know my hand's getting in the way a little bit, but that's kind of just the unfortunate way that I have to do this. So now I've got it sanded that way. Now I want to start going against the scratch marks that I have in there. And I'm going to tell you, yes, the first couple times that I'm going to spin this thing around, it's going to be a little bit more firm. And then I'm going to just get lighter and lighter and lighter until I can kind of see that, you know, it's definitely getting clearer already. You can see that it cleared up. And you can see here that I don't see any visible scratches. By the time I'm done through 400, I should not see visible scratches on this thing. So now it's time to get to micro mesh. And I'm going to tell you, I saved this piece from a guy who had this in a demo. This was his micro mesh. And if your micro mesh looks like this, do me a favor, throw it out. This is going to do nothing but burnish, and you're not going to get a good finish on it. Remember, sandpaper is still a cutting tool. If you ever want to clean it though, and you can wash it, we wash ours in the wash machine, and you can see here what I've got is a simple mesh bag, and then I'll put the micro mesh in here and throw it in with the rest of our clothes, and yes, it will clean it out, and you'll get really good, perfectly clean micro mesh when you're done with it. But in my case, I've got a little bit of fresh micro mesh right here ready to go. And let's take a look at how easy this is going to be. So as I suggested in my sanding video, I'm going to rotate every other grit. So you can see here, I'm going to take this. Then I'm going to stop my lathe. And with my second sheet of paper, I'm going to go this way. Then I'm going to take my third, and I'm going to put the lathe back on. People always ask about lathe speed. It's not the fastest you can go. For me, it's somewhere in the range of usually no more than 1,000 RPMs. I'm going to go for 4. And you can see here already, this blank is really starting to come clear. And I do focus on the ends. That's usually the spot where people can notice any kind of scratch marks or scuffing marks, because they're going to look at it the most when they get to the end. So now I'm going to go to 5, and I promise you, it's not a hard, long endeavor. I'm simply going to take it, 5 is done, 6, and you should really start to see it glisten up when you get to 7, 8, and 9. So you can see how much different it is already. So here's 7. And you can start to see the shine lines coming through. 8. By this time you don't even feel the sandpaper really doing any cutting. You know that it's kind of just doing the buffing out now. And then finally 9. And on number 9, I will now take it and I'll do it both ways. So I will now go this way, just to make sure that I've got it completely done. And you can see already, see how glass that looks already. And so now we're going to go through the next 2 secret steps. I prefer to use Novus polish on mine. So I use the Novus 2 scratch remover. And you can see here I use the, I buy it in big bottles of it. And you think, well, you know what, that's going to be really, really hard to get on a piece of, I use blue paper towel. It's hard to get that on a piece of blue paper towel. Well, here's a little tip and trick. Find yourself an old bottle from from soap that you use basically in your bathrooms or in your kitchens. This is just soap, and it has a pump dispenser on it. And you can see here now, all I got to do is put a pump, and I get the perfect amount of applicant that I want on here. I'm going to put it in, not on a very high speed, probably around 400 to 600. I'm going to rub it in. And now I will turn the lathe up. And now I'm just going to simply buff this. And I'm putting a little bit of pressure on there. When I'm actually going through the buffing, I am putting a little bit of pressure on it. And can you see that now? You've got a perfect shine line on there. And so when I take this off, and we take a look at it, it looks identical, well, almost identical to the one that we have here. And you know what? We got one more final step on this one. We've got the buffing step. And we're going to go over to the Beal buffing system, and we're going to go through buffing this, and I'm going to show you how I go through my buffing steps. So with that, give me a second to break down, and I'm going to move it over to the other side. Alright, so now we're going to talk a little bit about buffing. And many people think, you know what, buffing is just simply take the pen blank, push it against the 3 wheels, and I'm done. And they're right, but you know what, I'm going to give you a couple tips and tricks to make it even better, more consistent. The first one is you should always make sure you clean these wheels. And they do get wax buildup in there, and one of the things that I found is that I simply take one of these. This is a drywall sanding pad. And the nice thing about it is the sandpaper, if you will, is already attached to the block, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to do it in this video because it will get a lot of these fibers all over in the air. But I'll simply take my lathe, I'll turn it on, and then I'll touch it here, I'll touch it here, and I'll touch it here, and I'll actually wait to get this stuff cleaned out. And so all my pads are cleaned out, and that's a real important part. Once again, if you just keep putting the wax on here, you're just going to get buildup on it, and you're not going to get the action that these things were designed for. So a few minutes of cleaning up, go to Home Depot, pick up the drywall sanding pad, and you're going to be perfectly fine. So the other thing that I see people do is simply take the blank, hold it between their fingers, and then try to put it onto the buffing wheels. And I'm going to tell you, it's a little dangerous to do it that way. So what I use is a 1/4 inch rod, and these are the Delrin bushings that we use for putting on super glue or our CA finishes on there. And so I'll take this over here. I'll put this here. I'll take another one. I'll push it on there. And now I've got real good control over this. And I can hold it very, very tight. And I can get exactly the pressure on it that I really want to get when I'm actually doing my buffing. So I know everybody's frugal. You think that once you put this on, it's going to last a long time. I put it on almost every time that I'm going to do a pen, or maybe every other time that I'm going to do a pen. The other thing comes in is speed. On when you're doing your buffing, it's anywhere between 1500 to 2000 RPM. So you know what? I'm right in the middle. I'm at 1750. I've got a variable speed lathe here that it's set up on, and this is a permanent lathe for doing my buffing, so I know that I've got it set up and I've got it right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a little bit of loading, and then I'm actually going to buff out this pen. So I load that up. You can see that I got some color on there. I load up the white. And then finally, I load up my carnauba wax. And now watch how easy it is. I'm simply going to take this thing and I'm going to hold it, but I'm going to hold it below center. If I hold it above center, it's going to want to shoot out and the force is going to come up here. If I hold it below center, and if you notice, I don't put a lot of pressure on it, so I can actually let the blank spin. And I will try to get it as I'm turning it. I'm getting it all ways. So I will start it this way. And then as I get it to where I think I'm getting it completely buffed out, I'm going to turn it a little bit this way. And there you go. Now that I'm done, there's that complete circuit board pen. Looks like glass. It's a crystal clear finish on here. And as we did, I mean, we didn't take more than 5 to 6 minutes to go through all the steps of taking it from rough sanded with our traditional sandpaper all the way out through buffing. So I hope that helps. Hopefully you got out of it exactly how to get a glass-like finish on your acrylic. Same thing that we did on this circuit board will apply to all our acrylics. And yeah, I know not all acrylics are acrylics. Most of them are plastics. I know that and I appreciate that, but you know what? The finishing technique is going to work the same on all of them. So, as always, I thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. If you have any other ideas, put them in the comments below. I love answering the questions. And you know what? If you have any other comments, throw them in the comments below. This channel is intended to just give you my way of doing things, but then act to facilitate conversation amongst other people. So if you've got a different tip or technique that you've done on there, feel free to throw it in the comments. I appreciate that. So as always, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Thank you. This video made possible by the fine folks at Exotic Blanks. For all your pen making needs, Exotic Blanks has you covered. Find them at www.exoticblanks.com. And also by Pen Makers International, the educational source for pen making.